Marphil woke up on a very special morning. The sun was already peeking through the curtains, and the birds outside were singing their very best songs. Marphil sat up in bed, eyes wide open, and thought, "Today is the day. Today is Dad's day." And Marphil had a plan. The most wonderful, most delicious, most perfectly perfect plan in the whole entire world. A picnic. The best picnic Dad had ever seen. Because Dad was, without any doubt, the best Dad there ever was. Marphil tiptoed to the kitchen, very quietly, so Dad wouldn't hear, and pulled out a big wicker basket from under the counter. It was a little dusty, and maybe a little lopsided, but Marphil gave it a good pat and said, "You'll do just fine." Then Marphil opened the fridge and started making a list in their head. Sandwiches, check. Lemonade, check. Dad's favorite cookies, the round ones with the jam in the middle, double check. This picnic was going to be absolutely, perfectly, wonderfully brilliant. First, the sandwiches. Marphil got out the bread, 2 slices, and the butter, a big scoop, and spread it all around. So far, so good. Then Marphil added the cheese and the tomato and just a little bit of mustard, because Dad always said mustard made everything better. But then the bread slipped and the cheese flopped and the tomato rolled right off the counter and bounced, boing, 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 all the way across the kitchen floor. Marphil stared at it. The tomato stared back. "That's okay," said Marphil, picking the tomato back up and giving it a little wipe. "A great picnic chef doesn't give up." Marphil carefully put the sandwich back together, a little squished, a little wonky, but still very much a sandwich, and wrapped it up in a piece of crinkly paper. Then Marphil moved on to the lemonade. Marphil found the lemons, found the jug, and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, and got exactly 3 drops of lemon juice. 3 drops. Marphil looked at the 3 drops, then looked at the jug, then looked at the lemons. There were 6 more lemons in the bowl, so Marphil squeezed those too, and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed some more. By the end, Marphil's paws were tired, and the lemonade was, well, it was a little bit more water than lemon. But Marphil added some sugar, gave it a stir, and tasted it. It was actually not bad. Maybe a tiny bit like lemon-flavored water, but still, lemonade. Done. Now, for the most important part, the cookies. Dad's favorite jam cookies. Marphil found the tin where Mum kept the biscuits, opened it up, and there were exactly 2 cookies left. 2. Marphil counted them again just to be sure. Still 2. That was okay, though. 1 for Dad and 1 for Marphil. That was actually perfect. Marphil placed them very carefully on a little plate, wrapped the plate in a cloth so they wouldn't break, and tucked everything into the basket. The picnic was ready. Marphil carried the basket, which was quite heavy now, out into the garden. And that's when things got a little bit more complicated, because the garden was very, very windy today. The moment Marphil laid out the big checked blanket, whoosh, the wind picked it right up and sent it sailing through the air like a flying carpet. Marphil ran after it. The blanket flapped. Marphil grabbed one corner. The wind grabbed the other. For a moment, it really did look like the blanket might just fly away forever. And then, a big hand reached out and caught the other corner. Dad was standing there in his comfy weekend jumper, hair all ruffled from sleep, looking very surprised and very amused. "Well," said Dad, "it looks like this blanket needs two of us." Together, they pulled it down and spread it flat on the grass, holding the corners down with the basket and a couple of big stones from the garden path. Marphil looked up at Dad. Dad looked down at Marphil. "Did you do all this?" Dad asked quietly. "I made you a picnic," said Marphil, "for your special day. But the tomato fell on the floor, and the lemonade is mostly water, and there were only 2 cookies, and the blanket tried to escape." Dad sat down on the grass and patted the spot beside him. "Marphil," he said, "that is the most wonderful thing I've ever heard." Marphil sat down next to him, and they opened the basket together. The squished sandwich, the pale lemonade, the 2 little jam cookies on their cloth-wrapped plate. Dad took a big bite of the squished sandwich. He chewed slowly. He nodded. "This," he said, "is the best sandwich I have ever eaten." Marphil giggled. "It's a bit wonky." "Wonky sandwiches taste better," said Dad, very seriously. Then Dad took a sip of the lemonade. He tilted his head. He said, "Refreshing. Very subtle." "It's mostly water," Marphil admitted. Dad laughed, a big, warm, rumbly laugh that Marphil loved more than almost anything. "It's perfect," Dad said. And somehow, Marphil believed him.
They sat together in the garden for a long, lovely time. The wind had calmed down now, as if it was sorry for all the fuss. A butterfly landed on the edge of the basket and stayed for a little while. Dad told Marphil about the time he was small and tried to bake a birthday cake that came out completely flat, like a pancake. Marphil laughed so hard that lemonade nearly came out of their nose. And then it was time for the cookies. Marphil carefully unwrapped the cloth and held out the little plate. 2 round cookies with jam in the middle, perfectly safe and not broken at all. "One for you," said Marphil, "and one for me." Dad picked up his cookie. Marphil picked up the other one. They clinked them together like a toast and took a bite at exactly the same time. The cookie was sweet and crumbly and just right. Marphil looked at Dad. Dad looked at Marphil, and they both smiled the same smile. "Dad," said Marphil after a while, "was it really the best picnic ever, even though things went a bit wrong?" Dad put his arm around Marphil and pulled them close. "Marphil," he said gently, "the best picnic ever isn't about the sandwiches or the lemonade or even the cookies, though those were truly excellent cookies." He gave Marphil a little squeeze. "The best picnic ever is the one where I get to sit in the sunshine with you." Marphil leaned into Dad's big warm side and felt very, very happy. And so that's the story of Marphil's best dad picnic ever. The tomato bounced. The lemonade was mostly water.
The blanket tried to fly away, and it was still, completely, absolutely, without any doubt, the best picnic in the whole wide world. Because the best things aren't always the most perfect ones. Sometimes the best things are the ones made with a whole lot of love and just a tiny bit of mustard. Happy Father's Day to every dad out there.